morning, viewers. I'm your teacher for this morning, Sister Lundel, Burnette. And my topic for this morning is wrong background, noble character, positive results through faith. And I'm going to base my topic on the character from the Bible, Queen Esther. Now, most of you are supposed to have known the story of Esther from Sabbath school, or maybe from listening to sermons that have been preached before, or somebody talking about this noble queen of Israel time that made the great sacrifice to save Israel's nation. Now, let's get a little background check on Queen Esther. Who was Esther? Esther was an Israelite orphan who grew up in her uncle's home as his daughter, who through bizarre circumstances, and even though of the wrong background for the then-time queen, became the queen of Persia. When trouble came to Esther's people, in the face of Naaman and his quest to be recognized, Esther was able, through her faith in God, not in the security of her marriage, not in her worldly possession, her beauty, or her relationship with her husband, but in her relationship and faith in God to save her people. Many of us might see Esther as having the wrong background to be the queen of Persia. To us, in so many times, we might see something as wrong, but to God, it is the right character, it is the right background, it is the right everything to do what he wants to do and to portray what he wants to portray so that all the glory can go to him. We will go to Esther chapter 2 and read from verses 5 to 10 to show the wrong background that Esther had. And the same reads, "Now there was in the citadel of Susa a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin, named Mordecai, son of Jair, the son of Shimi, the son of Kish, who had been carried away into exile from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Among those taken captive with Jehoiachin, king of Judah, Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This girl, who was also known as Esther, was lovely in form and features, and Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter when her father and mother died. When the king's order and edict had been proclaimed, many girls were brought to the citadel of Susa and put under the care of Hegai. Esther was also taken to the king's palace and entrusted to Hegai, who had charge of the harem. The girl pleased him and won his favor. Immediately, he provided her with her beauty treatments and special food. He assigned her to 7 maids selected from the king's palace and moved her and her maids into the best place in the harem." Now there we have what we may know as Esther's wrong background to be the queen of Persia. But to God, Esther had the right background and the right attitude to be the queen of Persia so that in future she would be able to save Israel. Sometimes in life we might feel to ourselves that we might not have the right character, we might not have come from the right background to achieve certain things in life. But I want you to know today that because of faith, and because we have faith in God, nothing is wrong if we put everything to God so that he can work it out for us. Now, Esther never knew that there would have come a time when she would have been placed in the palace. Esther never expected to be queen. Esther, as an orphan and of the Israelite background, had never dreamed that one day she would have become the queen of Persia over all her people. But further down, you get to realize that Esther was chosen as the queen of Persia, even though she had the wrong background, as we might have think. Now, in the book of Esther, chapter 4, reading from verses 15 to 16, we find here Esther's noble character. It says, then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Now let me back up a little bit. When Esther was chosen as queen, there was this man by the name of Haman. Haman wanted to be recognized. Haman wanted persons to bow to him. But Esther's cousin, whom she took as a father, never bowed to Haman. And Haman added in for Mordecai. So Haman decided that because of Mordecai not giving him the kind of respect and the kind of notice that he wanted from Mordecai, he was going to kill all the Israelites. So Mordecai, when he get to understand what was Haman's plot, he rent his garment and he was at the palace gate. When Esther sent to Mordecai to find out why he was doing this, why are you in sackcloth, why are you mourning, what is the problem, Mordecai sent to Esther to tell Esther what the problem was and tell Esther that she need to go to the king. All this time, Esther had already gone through her process and Esther was queen. So after Mordecai asked this of Esther, Esther sent to tell him that she could not go into the king until the king sent for her. And Mordecai sent back the message to Esther to say, don't feel that you would be exempt when the time for slaughter comes around. So Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susha and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. Now, how many of us would have taken that stand? How many of us would have looked at it to say, if I perish, I perish? Today, we have the motto, is either me, I, or myself. But Esther then wasn't thinking, at first, she was thinking of me, I, and myself. But then when she come to the understanding that she was there for something greater than herself, she decided to make the decision. She decided to activate her faith in God. And she said to herself, if through God I can, even though I am not of a Persian background, I can become queen, then through God I can go into the king. And if it is that I should perish, then it is the will of God. But with faith, I'm going to do what I have to do, and I'm going to get through this. Sometimes we need to forget self. Sometimes we need to look beyond what seemed to be, even though the bigger picture might not be visible. And we need to just step out in faith. We need to activate that faith that is within us, because we know with God all things are possible. The Bible tells us faith without works is dead. And Esther had to have that faith and work with it so that she could achieve what she went there to do. Now, through the faith that Esther had in God, Esther was preparing for some positive results. Esther was preparing for some positive results, not because of herself, not because of Mordecai, not because of the king, but because of God. And Esther's positive results and Esther's faith gained what she wanted. In chapter 5 of the same Esther, reading from verses 1 to 7, it says, on the third day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. Now, what I want us to realize is that even though Esther might have gone into the king alone, Esther was still not alone. Before we read that Esther asked Mordecai to ask the people of Israel to fast and to pray. Sometimes to activate the strength of our faith, we need to fast and pray. Through fasting and prayer, Esther had the strength to go in to the king. So Esther put on her royal robes. and she stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall, facing the entrance. When he saw Queen Esther standing in the court, he was pleased with her entrance. And he held out to her the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. I can just imagine what was going through the king's mind when he saw Esther standing there. He didn't even think to say, well, I did not send for her. What was she doing there? Because Esther was clothed, even though she had on the robe, spiritually Esther was clothed in that strong faith of God. So the king saw beyond not sending for Esther, and he welcomed Esther into him, because Esther did not go there of herself. Esther went there with the Spirit of God to guide and protect her so that she can get done what had to be done. Then the king asks, what is it, my queen, Esther? We're at verse 3. What is your request? Even up to half of the kingdom, it will be given you. Now just imagine, the king did not send for you. Unless the king sent for you, you cannot approach. If you should go to the king without a summons, you could be beheaded. And there is little Esther, beautiful, well-clothed, standing in front of the king without a summons. And the king is asking her, what is it? Even to half of the kingdom. Brothers and sisters, hallelujah. I want to tell you, this is how God works. God works on faith. If you have the faith that it can be done, it will be done. If you have that faith in God that this is what is supposed to happen, then it will happen through faith. It might not happen the way you want it to be. It might not happen when you want it to happen. But with God, time, it will happen if it is for your best and highest good. And if it is something that will take you to your next level, or something that would lift you spiritually, or something to save your life. God works on faith. It says, if it pleases the king, replied Esther, verse 4, let the king, together with Haman, come today to a banquet I have prepared for him. Bring Haman at once, the king said, so that we may do what Esther asks. Esther received favor. And we too can receive favor through faith. So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther prepared. As they were drinking the wine, the king asked Esther, now what is your petition? It will be given to you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted. Esther replied, my petition and my request is that if the king regards me and with favor, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for them. Then I will answer the king's question. Now, sometimes we want to move with haste. Sometimes we're in such a hurry to get things done. Sometimes we're helter-skelter, hither, and yon, hurrying, rushing around just to get things done. And at the end of the day, it is not done properly, or it is not done in the right way, because there's a right way of doing things and there's a wrong way of doing things. Esther realized that then it called for some subtle, the information that she wanted to give the king was not to be rushed. It was not to be in a hurry. She had to woo the king over to her. Even though he said he was going to give her to the half of the kingdom, still she had to put him in that kind of frame of mind where in anticipation with what he expected was not what he was going to hear. And sometimes that is what we have to do. We have to trust God for guidance. We have to trust God where we cannot trace him. We have to have faith in God and the results that he's going to produce. So Esther told the king, I'm not going to tell you what I want you to hear tonight. Come back for next banquet. You know, so the king, after on a full stomach and drinking wine and feeling good and enjoying the company of his wife, he was like, okay, no problem. We're going to come back again. Esther was making the way to get some positive results out of the king. Esther was making the way so that when she revealed, because all this time the king never knew that Esther was of Israelite background. So Esther wanted that when she revealed that, okay, I am not Persian, I am an Israelite, and this is what's going to happen, the king would not be angry with her for hiding her background, but the king would demonstrate anger to where anger needed to be. So in Esther chapter 7, from verses 1 to 10, is where Esther would get her positive results when the king and Haman went back the second time for the banquet. 7, it says, so the king and Haman went to dine with Queen Esther. And as they were drinking wine on that second day, the king asked again, Queen Esther, what is your petition? I could just imagine the king going home from the banquet and just lying on the bed and just thinking about his beautiful wife and just wondering to know what is it that she wants? What is it that is bothering her? What it is that she couldn't have told me after feeding me? What is it that she couldn't have told me after feeding me and after us having such a nice time? What is it? And sometimes we keep pondering upon these things. Our mind just keep wondering when something happened. We keep wondering, what is it? Where did I go wrong? What did I do that caused this to happen? What is it that I cannot do? What is it that somebody cannot tell me? But all this time, we need to have faith in God. Then Queen Esther answered, if I have found favor with you, O king, and if it pleases your majesty, grant me my life. This is my petition, and spare my people. This is my request. I could just imagine the shock on the king's face when Esther said, grant me my life, because the king knew that he never threatened this queen's life. The king knew that he never threatened the queen's people because he, all of this time, never knew that Esther was an Israelite. So he's wondering, what is it she's saying? Have you ever find yourself in a situation where you say something, persons are looking at you like, she ain't good, or he all right? They gotta be crazy. I could just imagine the expression that was on the king's face when Esther said that. So Esther went on to say, for I and my people have been sold for destruction and slaughter and annihilation. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king. King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, who is he? Where is the man who was there to do this thing? Right away, the king flew into a passion. The king got angry, and he wanted to know who is threatening my queen. And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this vile Haman. Now there was Haman, throwback, relaxed, enjoying the drink on Queen Esther's couch, having the time of the day. He was in the presence of the queen and the king. And the egotistical person that he was, he felt to himself, well, I am made. And sometimes persons behave like that towards us, no matter what we try to do. But have faith in God. He's going to resolve situations and he's going to resolve everything. Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen. Have you ever find yourself in a situation when somebody tried to do you wrong, and then when the wrong turned back on them, and then they actually, like in a panic, rushing to you to find out what it is I can do to resolve this situation? But then it's too late. The king got up in a rage, left his wine, and went out into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was reclining, and the king exclaimed, will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house? Can you see how faith in God can make situations look as though it is so vile and so wrong when it's in your favor? Faith in God can do so much for us. At the time when the king returned and he saw Haman trying to beg the queen, to the king it looked like something totally different. And what happened? Haman was building a 7-foot gallows to hang Mordecai. And because of Esther's faith in God, and because Esther trusted in God, And because Esther depended on God to give her some positive results, Haman ended up on that same gallows for the wrong that he had done, he was going to do to Esther and her people, for the wrong he was going to do for God's people. I want you to know today, faith in God can move mountains. Faith in God can do so much for us. Faith in God can bring us out of situations and circumstances that we never even dreamed would have happened, that we never even dreamed we would have found ourselves out of. Esther never knew that she would have been king. Esther never knew that the king would have accepted her when she went without a petition. Esther never knew that the king would have come on her side and give her the kind of results and the kind of satisfaction that she needed for that situation. But through faith, Esther achieved that. Sometimes we need to look beyond what seems to be, as I said before, and to see the bigger picture and to see what God has in store for us. If only we can have a little faith as a mustard seed in the God in whom we serve.